The blunt honest truth is that a lot of MMOs are just bad games, which is a contentious opinion to have as a creator that focuses largely on MMO content, I know. But I don't think we really need to spend time sugarcoating something that a large percentage of us are already actively aware of, right? Right. But that doesn't mean that there aren't little gems that are hidden away that you might have either overlooked or that maybe just didn't appeal to you at the time. And just because a large quantity of free MMOs are bad doesn't mean that they all are. On the contrary, there are several free MMOs that are of such stark contrasting difference in terms of quality that you might forget for a moment the sheer lack of new releases over the last 8 months. Lost Ark, Diablo Immortal, and Ni no Kuni Crossworlds are the only MMOs to have released within 2022. And 2 of them are mobile games. That is the state of the genre right now. Before we address the rather slim selection of free MMOs that are worth giving a damn over though, I just want to take a moment here to thank our current patrons over on Patreon. You guys are all absolute freaking legends of the highest caliber. Seriously, if I could see you all in person right now, I'd probably hug like at least 3 of you. And if you don't already, go ahead and follow MRSSTIX and I over on Twitter. We like to tweet things there. Now we're gonna go ahead and start this off with what I believe to be the worst of the best free MMOs, which I know kind of sounds a little weird, but we're gonna cycle through beginning with the worst of the best and finishing with the best of the best. And Blade & Soul is pretty much exactly that, the raw definition of what free MMOs both do right and what they simultaneously do wrong. This is an absolutely gorgeous game. South Korea is known for pushing out some of the best looking graphics in the MMO scene, and Blade & Soul is no different. It has what is arguably one of the best action combat systems within the genre, being bested only by Black Desert Online. It has a deep narrative, although it is very shonen. If you watch anime, you'll understand exactly what you're in for. There's a large world to explore, although it's very empty, but you know what, the game itself is horrendously pay to win. They're always adding and removing features and content. They really don't know what their player base wants. You know, there's both good and bad, and no MMO is perfect. MapleStory is an interesting type of MMO. It's about as contrastingly different to the traditional MMO formula as you can get. Where many MMOs possess large open worlds, MapleStory provides very compact instances. Where many MMOs possess similar graphical styles, similar combat styles, MapleStory exceeds at setting itself apart by offering a unique cartoony sprite style aesthetic with ridiculously over the top flashy special effects. Where many MMOs have absolutely no direction, no real story to enthrall you, MapleStory provides one of the most entertaining narratives that I've seen play out in the scene. It doesn't take itself seriously for a single second, and even takes advantage of how campy and cringe it can get at times. Yet at the same time, this is a Nexon MMO, so you're immediately aware Nexon is exhausting every avenue possible to monetize you. Neverwinter is one of the most difficult MMOs for me to play solo, regardless of what class I choose. I get absolutely destroyed playing solo, which, you know, means that you are, in essence, required to play alongside other players. I know, wow, you have to play with other people in an MMO? What kind of fallacy is this? And while you don't need to necessarily, it is going to make your life exponentially easier by doing so, which, admittedly makes the game a lot more fun to me. Initially, you'll be under the impression that the game is very largely instanced, but as you continue to play through the worlds, you'll quickly come to realize that the zones themselves are quite large and filled with other players. The combat is also pretty damn good, easily one of the better parts of the game. However, it feels like you're often spending the bulk of your time just grinding 5 to 10 of the same quests, killing the same monsters, and this repetitious cycle until moving to a new area, which, you know, can get old very, very fast. And it has also been accused of being very heavily pay to win on numerous occasions by a surplus of different people. Not that I've seen any of it personally, though. SoulWorker to me has what I believe to be the best action combat in an anime MMO. Not in the genre overall, but as an anime title. I know that isn't really saying a lot, as its main competition for the most part are games that are pretty much a decade old. Unlike most MMOs, SoulWorker makes use of a central hub, or rather, several central hubs, where players gather, where they group together, accept and complete quests. It's where the bulk of non-combat activities take place. After accepting quests, you deploy into a variety of instances, where you kill a slew of monsters, the boss of the dungeon, and you move on to the next one. There are varying difficulties and a large variety of instances, but you typically repeat the same layout and the same monsters for hours on end, which can get old very fast, but I mean, you can play as a bunch of cute anime girls, so there's that. You'll often hear me both praising and criticizing Star Wars: The Old Republic in the same breath, because on the one hand, this game has one of the best narratives in the entire genre, surpassed only by Final Fantasy XIV. It has absolutely monstrous sized worlds for you to explore, characters from the Star Wars universe to run into, full voice acting, a lot of customization options, yet the game just never felt as fair to free players as it does to premium players gating certain features behind a paywall. Well, that and the horrible combat. It is slow, it is clunky. You wouldn't believe that it had the backing from one of the largest game developers in the West. And even outside of the combat, it is a slow game. It is a very slow game, which is both a pro and a con, depending on why it's slow at the time. Like, characters you like are being featured? Hell yeah. Characters you could care less about though? Yeah, wanna pass, but can't really. Vindictus is the exact same type of game as SoulWorker, just instead of cute anime girls, you're given dozens of Victoria's Secret supermodels wearing less than they do on the runway. Well, okay, that's actually a lie. You need to pay to look like that. The vast majority of outfits are not free, even though the main reasons to play Vindictus are 1, its combat, which for a free MMO is only paralleled by Blatant Soul, and 2, its waifus. Sure, you can play as the male characters, but who does that? It also has a completely different graphical style. Vindictus is a medieval MMO. It looks and feels much more realistic than any other game listed in this list. Every game feels highly inspired by a certain regional fantasy, not Vindictus though, but this is a Nexon MMO, so even despite how good the core game is, that automatically carries with it a level of pay to win that you will not find anywhere else, and its player base is surprisingly small given that it's actually a very good quality free MMO. The king of hub MMOs and arguably a master of its specific style, Dungeon Fighter Online. I continue to play this game year after year. Why? Well, honestly, some games you play because you're addicted to them. That doesn't necessarily equate to having fun in them, but there are some games that you play because they are genuinely fun, and that is what DFO is. Fast, raw, unadulterated fun in the most compact of sizes, where most hub MMOs like Vindictus, like SoulWorker, like PSO2 have a couple varied hubs to play out of. Dungeon Fighter has, well, more than every one of them combined. Tons of NPCs, cities that feel alive, bustling, players around every corner, and an aesthetic that not only accentuates the unique style of the game, but also simultaneously enhances it. You will not, and I repeat, not see combat like this in any other MMO, not even close. Coupled with its narrative, its extensive class system, and what feels like endless amounts of content, there's almost nothing wrong with it. Well, except its stamina system, that repeatedly inhibited my progress each day. I like to play MMOs for several hours at a time. I do not want to be locked out after 1 or 2. Listing Guild Wars 2 in any free-to-play video is always going to be a contentious thing to do. People are very divided on whether it should be classified as a free MMO or not. On the one hand, you can play the entire game for free, up until the expansion content anyway, after which you're required to purchase the expansion packs to continue moving into new zones, gaining access to mounts and other cool features. Regardless of your stance, I consider it to be a free game, and it is easily the highest quality free MMO out there. From its deep, perfectly crafted hybrid combat system to its overwhelmingly stunning large open world, it has an interactive narrative, a ridiculous level of class depth, a PvP system with actual players. Although it's also very different to what we're typically used to. It doesn't provide players access to quests in the traditional sense. Dungeons are barely done. Your level is scaled to the area of the world that you're in. The only downside is that year after year, it continues to show its age. Alright, so Tower of Fantasy might not be the best looking MMO, it might not have the best combat, it might not have a great narrative, but my god did I have fun in the beta when I played it. Several hours every single day spent playing through the story, running the dungeons with groups of people, watching a friend of ours, Hikari, try and fail to keep us alive. This is an MMO launching very soon, by the end of the third quarter of 2022, and it's an MMO that I'm going to lose myself in again. Well, to a degree. The game is bright, it's vibrant, it's completely open world. As large and open as Genshin Impact, you can interact with all of your surroundings, climbing, gliding, hoverboarding. Combat is fast, albeit it can at times get fairly irritating when it auto-locks on to targets that you're not actively trying to hit. The downside to all of this, and this is a very large downside to me, was its gating of the story, which prevented you from progressing through it until you had waited a sufficient number of hours or days as you continued through it. Thankfully, I'll probably just end up playing it casually, once or twice a week for hours at a time. That way I can progress through the game at my own pace. And finally, Digimon Super Rumble. This is an MMO that has not launched in the West yet, but is easily the most fun I've had in an MMO in years. This definitely will not appeal to everyone. I guarantee a lot of today's generation of players that love games like Fortnite and whatever other games kids play these, Roblox. Yeah, that's all I got. Those kinds of players are not going to appreciate the old school feel of this. It took me back to a time when JRPGs were turn-based, filled with story, and had you explore and grind for hours to level high enough to tackle a boss that would otherwise be too difficult for you. These are things that I sorely miss from JRPGs created these days, and is something that I believe the MMO genre could definitely benefit from. Digimon Super Rumble has a large open world with a ton of throwbacks to the Digimon Adventure anime, which I absolutely loved in terms of zones, Digimon, and more. This is a hidden gem that I hope to one day be able to play with all of you in English. And you know what, that's that. 10 free MMOs I genuinely enjoy and would totally go back to at any point in the year when I'm bored. If these MMOs aren't doing it for you though, here's a list of gacha games that you might be more interested in, or alternatively, a list of upcoming MMOs that we're supposed to be releasing this year.